Assalamualaikum and hi. In this video, I'm going to go through the solutions of week 10 Java methods with you, where in this specific week, we have learned about Java methods. We look into how to create a method, how to call a method. We have also looked into different types of method, for example, return type method, non-return type method, and also methods with parameters and methods without parameters. At the same time, we learn about the recursive method. And finally, we look into some of the method available within the Java math class. So let's get started with the first questions, where the first questions will require us to identify at least 5 errors within the provided code cell. So before we start to fix the errors, it will be great if you can go through the codes and try to understand what this Java code is trying to do. So we can see here you have an import statements that use a scanner class. You have a specific method here, where based on the name, we know that the method is to calculate average. We then create a scanner object. We print an instructions for the user to input the numbers of elements in the array. So we know that we are dealing with array here. And then we read the input from the user. We then declare an array with a specific length based on the user input. We loop through the array, and finally we call the method to calculate the average. So let's go back to the beginning of our code, where here you can see a method. But if you look into this further, then you will know that you have a void keyword here, and you have the double, which indicates the data type of the return value. And there is actually a contradiction here, because we know that void is for a method which does not return any value. So in this specific case, we will need to first remove the void keyword. So that will be my first arrow. So I remove the void keyword. And now if we look into the parameter here, okay, remember that everything within the parenthesis here is the parameter. Of course, we have only one parameter here, ARR. And we also know that this is actually an array, right? Because if we look into the content of the method, what it's trying to do is to use a for each loop to loop through that array, which is ARR. So because this is an array, then we will need to specify the data type and also the data structure of that array. So we know that we need to use that data type double, because here is double. And we need to have the square brackets to indicate that this is actually an array structure. So that will be my second arrows, where I will need to add in double and the square brackets. Now moving on, we have the scanner object, but there's something missing here, because we know that new scanner, we will need to add in the System.in. So that will be my third arrow, where I need to add System.in. I have an instructions here, and then I ask the user to input a number of elements, nothing wrong here. And then I declare another array, doubles values equal to new double. We know that there's something missing here, because whenever we create an array, we need to specify the length of that array. So what will be the specific length of that array? In this case will be, I will need to put in number of elements. Now moving on to the for loop here. So I have for integer I equal to 0, I less than the number of elements, I plus plus, that's totally fine. I print out everything and I put that into the array, right? Where here I use the next integer. Well, is next integer correct? The answer is not, because if we look back into our method here, we need to have an array with the data type double. So here I will need to use double. Okay, next double. Right, I'm going to put it here again. We need to, that will be the fourth arrow, where we need to specify the length. And the fifth arrow here is to use next double. Now, I think there's one more arrow here. Double average is equal to calculate average, and then you have the parentheses here. Obviously, this is how we call the method, but because the method is with parameter, so we will definitely need to pass an argument to this method. So here, within the parentheses, I will need to add something. So what do I need to add will be values, because values will be the array that I'm going to pass into this method, calculate average, so that it will calculate the average of that array for me. So now I'm going to run this and enter the number of elements in the array. For example, I just need 3. And I'll put in the first value will be 10, the second will be 20, the third will be 30. Right. So in that case, I get the average, which is 20. Okay, I'm going to put in here. The 6th arrow will be specify the arguments. Okay. Now let's move on to question 2, where question 2, it says, create a Java programs that counts the number of vowels in a given string. Okay. The program should prompt user to enter a string, and within these programs, we will need to create a method, and that method should be with the name isVowel that return true if a given character is a vowel and false otherwise. Okay, this method should take a parameter of type character. So this should be character, not string, as stated earlier. If you still remember, we have done something very similar back in week 6 Java conditional statements, where we use a switch statements to identify whether a given character is vowel or consonant. So here we have a switch statements, we have different case, including uppercase and lowercase. So if it is A, E, I, O, U, then I print vowel. If it's not, then I print consonant. So basically what I can do is I'm going to use this and I'm going to put that into a method. Right, so here I have also written down the codes for asking user to enter keywords. Remember, because here it says the program should prompt user to enter a string. So I have done that already. I import a scanner class, I create a scanner object, I ask the user to enter keyword, and I read the keyword. I just print out the keywords in this case. So I'm going to run this first. Now, for example, if I enter hello, okay, and it will print hello. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take the switch statements here and put that into a method. So I'm going to add a code cell. And because we know that here, the method should be with the name vowel and it should return true or false. So obviously, it is a return type method, and the data type return will be Boolean because it's either true or false. The name given is vowel, and I will also need to have a parameter where it says here the parameter should with the type character. So I do character here and just a variable my char, for example. Open and close it. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste this code here, the switch statements, into my method. Okay. And because here is the expressions of my switch statement, so I will need to change this one to my char, which is the same as my parameter here. And instead of printing vowel and consonant, I would need to actually return either true or false. Well, we are going to do this later on. Now we can just use this method as it is. And we're trying to see how we can integrate this with what we have written earlier here. So here I have got the input from the user, and then I'm going to do a for loop to loop through each of the characters within the string. So what I can do is I can do for integer I equal to 0, I less than my width dot length, okay, I plus plus, okay, open and close brackets, and here I can do System.out.println my word I. Okay. Well, if you look into this, you might feel that this is kind of like correct, but if we run this, you'll definitely get an error. So for example, if I put hello, okay, you will get an arrow here where it says kind of find symbol, variable length, array required, but java.lang.string file. So, well, the syntax here is actually an array, not a string. Remember, previously we have learned about the differences between string and also array. We say that string is actually an array-like structure. It's not an array. And we actually have different specific methods that we can use to deal with string. So we need to do some modifications here because we're dealing with string. So what I'm going to do will be my width.length. Remember, this should be a method that belongs to the string class. And if I want to print out each of the characters within this string, I will need to use another method which we call as the char add. And I change this to I. Now, if I run this again, and I put in the keywords, then you will see I can print each of the characters within the string. So now I can print all of these. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this method and integrate that to my first part of the code. So I'm going to copy and paste this here. Okay, this is my method. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this method here is Valver. Okay, and of course, the parameters or the argument that I'm going to pass to this method will be my word.char at I, right? Because I need to check whether each of the characters in the string given is a vowel or a consonant. So now if I run this, I have problems, I think missing a return statements. Okay, right. Because here I already defined Boolean, so of course I need to return it. So for now, I just temporarily change it to void so that it is actually a non-return type method. If I run this again and I put hello, okay, what I get here is actually, okay, H is consonant, E is vowel, L is consonant, consonant and vowel. So it seems like the method is working, but still we haven't met the requirements. So I'm going to change it back to Boolean, and I will need to change a little bit of the codes here where I will say if the case is A, I, O, U, regardless is capital letter or small letters, I'm going to return true. Okay. And other than that, I'm going to return false. Of course, I will need the semicolons here. Now, again, if I run this, okay, and I see HELO, so I'll see HELO because I just returned a value and I didn't do anything with the value, so you won't see anything. Now, if we go back to the questions again, it says that the purpose of the Java program is to count the numbers of vowels in a given string. Okay, so we need to count how many vowels are there and how many consonants are there. So what you can do is, remember, when you are dealing with counters, then you will need to create a specific variables and to keep the counting, right? So what I'm going to do here is first I'm going to declare two variables, integer count vowel equal to 0 and integer count consonant will be equal to 0. Okay, and what I'm going to do within this for loop is I will say if, okay, well, I can just copy this one, okay, and put it here. So if vowel, then I will do count vowel plus plus. Else, okay, I'm going to do count consonant plus plus. So here is vowel my word.char at I. We know that if the given character here is a vowel, then it will return true, which means here it says is if true, then I will do count vowel plus plus, which means here plus plus, we know that plus plus is equal to plus 1, right? So count vowel plus 1. Else, okay, I add in another else statements, which means that if it is false, Okay, so here else will be if it is false. So in what situations it will be false is it will be false if the given characters are not vowel, then it will return false. Then I will count consonant, means I will add 1 to the consonant. Now I have done with this part. What I need to do is I just need to print the counter here. So I am going to copy the variables here, countVowel and countConsonant. And now I'm going to run this again. I'm going to put in HELLO. So we know that here 2 and also 3. So 2 here refers to the vowel and 3 here refer to the consonant, right? If you check on this, then it is correct, where we know that you have 2 vowels here, which is E and O, and then you have 3 consonants, which are L, L, and also H. So I think that's it for this video, where we're just going to cover the first 2 questions under week 10 Java methods. Thank you very much.